Welcome back. Discipline to Win, episode 29. Today is part 2 to our kickoff to 2025. Nick and I today are going to talk to all of you about how to make this the best year of your life, how to improve on leading an organization, working inside an organization, and be the best version of yourself. So, Nick, I'll sort of kick it over to you. What do you think from everybody that's listening today? What is the number one thing they should focus on for next year?
I think the number one thing is setting goals or achievements that are measurable. So a lot of people go into the new year and they like New Year resolution. I hate the word New Year resolution because it's something that is like, okay, I'm only going to do this for maybe 30 days or for the first 2 months of the year. Setting clear, measurable expectations of yourself. So for example, let's say that you're 40 pounds overweight and you want to get in shape. Do not, if you use a vision board, I don't use a vision board. I personally set like 4 to 5 business goals and I set 4 to 5 personal goals. And within my personal goals, like I have one that's dedicated to fitness. So for you, if it's you want to lose 40 pounds, don't put on your goals, I want to get in better shape, because that's an unmeasurable goal.
It's objective.
Exactly.
You could be
completely objective.
You could be 250 pounds and someone that's 350 thinks you're the picture of health.
Exactly.
But someone that's 195 is like, hey, you got a lot of work.
Exactly. So the number one thing is set measurable goals for yourself going into the next year, and also understand that you are not going to change the world in a month or even a year. Like, especially if it's like, let's say you're severely overweight, like you might not get to your goal weight in a year. Like this might be a 2, 3, 4 year process. If you're an entrepreneur or you're an employee and you want to become an entrepreneur, it might not be a year. It might be 2 or 3, but setting measurable goals of getting to a standpoint to put you in a better position to eventually get to that is a win in itself. So I think the number one thing people need to do is definitely write down what you want to achieve. Don't just keep it in your head. Don't change it throughout the year. Like write down at the beginning of the year what those personal and professional goals are going to be, and then like steps within the year of how you're going to attain those. So that's how I go at it. And I look back, I just did it. I look back at my 2024 goals. There was 5 goals that I hit. There was 3 goals that I didn't hit. So then those will get reframed into 2025. Why didn't I hit those? Reflect on that, looking at what you did in the past. But if you're starting right now from ground zero, put those personal and professional goals on a piece of paper, on your wall, whatever it is, and then you have some measurable aspect to then analyze your year when you look back at the beginning. Now, that's the way that I go about it. Do you go about it in a different way? Like, how do you kind of set yourself up for the new year as you go year to year?
It starts definitely obviously before you actually get into the new year. And I literally like doing it on the last day of the year. So today is, December 30th. Tomorrow's when we're filming this. Tomorrow's actually New Year's Eve. But on New Year's Eve, I will sit down for probably 2 hours as soon as I wake up. And I go back to what I messaged to our organization. Because every year I send out a New Year's Eve email to the entire team. And I go back and look at what was important a year ago to the organization, because whatever's important to the organization is really the most important thing in my life of where my goals are being driven from. And I look back at what did I put out that was really the biggest objective to the team, and then did we hit that or not? Then the next thing I always look at is it's any leader's responsibility to get in front of your organization at the start of the year, lay out your strategy on what you're going to accomplish for the year and how you're going to get there. Think of basically from a sports stance, every NFL coach on Monday morning gets up in front of their team and gives them the game plan of how they're going to beat the next team the next week. Like, it's your responsibility as a leader to give your team where you're going and then the game plan of how you're going to get there. So I always then look at, exactly what was the strategy and then what changed throughout the year. And it's a really important reflection point that's going to drive your decision-making, I think, for the next year. Because you don't want to randomly just throw darts at the wall of just random shit. It should be meaningful, and it should also connect. You don't want, your life is not a spike chart up and down. It's a lot more, gradual, and everything should be connected. It's not, a rubber band effect, one way or the other. So I try to connect the goals leading into each other to make it more of a life campaign plan than just fighting individual battles. So that's what I do on the business side. And the personal side, I already know, I think, by the end of the year, what's most important to me for the next year. I would say, for me personally, going into 25, lots changed in my life now with being done with the military. So it's going to free up, really personal time of 50 to 100 days for 2025. So for me, it's the first time in a decade that I've had that much, essentially free time, you can call it, to where the biggest gap in my life right now is definitely time with my kids. So for me, my, I would say biggest personal objective next year is just having even more meaningful time with my two boys and creating memories, especially now that Anthony's old enough, probably he's going to remember this next year. Everyone really goes back to when they're like 4 or 5 and that's their first memories. So for me, it is to create a lifelong memories with my boys next year that they'll remember the rest of their life with all that free time, and, not just roll that back into work basically. Because I just want this to be super meaningful part of their life, because everyone's childhood in one way or another really dictates, and it's either going to provide, reinforcement of like, I'm going to be just like dad, or it's going to provide reinforcement of like, I'm never going to do what dad did. So I want to, obviously want them to want to do what I did when they have their own kids. So definitely a huge year for me and meaningful with my kids next year. From a standpoint of, personal goals of, personal success, from income, for fitness, for health, I think the biggest thing everyone needs to look at is your fitness and health a priority in your life is it built into your schedule every single day the same way that, a meeting at work would be built in, or like picking your kids up from school, which is obviously like, you have to do that. Is that built in? So like when I look at my own calendar, like I'm at the point where I wasn't at this point a year ago. Like a year ago, fitness was not built into every day. Recovery and health was not built into every day. And throughout this year, probably starting in the like summertime, I got super serious about that and, made an investment into it and, hired coaches and built it into my schedule to where I feel really strong about, how I have my life and schedule set up to really set me up for success in 25. From a fitness and health standpoint, there's a lot of people that are probably like me. So like how my mind is, I have to be working towards something or training towards an objective with my fitness, or I'll call it lost in the sauce. There's been like points through my adult life where, I've got really healthy, really fit, and then like fell off a cliff because there's just been another priority. And I've found that if I'm training towards something or for something, it gives me purpose and motivation to keep going every single day. It's like discipline gets harder and harder and harder the longer you do it every single day. Like I don't think it gets any easier. I think it gets harder, to where for me, incorporating next year fitness objectives of I'm going to run a marathon, I'm going to complete a half Ironman. If you don't train properly for those things, A, you get embarrassed in front of everybody. B, you probably won't even finish, to where, obviously as a high energy, highly successful person, like you'd never want to, be put in that position. So you have to show up every day. So for me, putting those objectives of a fitness, a tangible, like you said, measurable thing that you can actually say like, yep, I ran 26 miles, or yep, I swam a mile, bike 56, ran 13, like measurable things, helps me in my fitness goals. Now that I'm out of the military, when I was in the military, I had, those hard, physical objectives that you had to be able to do at a high level, to where I want to make sure that not having those now, I still have those hard physical fitness objectives that I have to actually tackle. So for me, that's how I'm going about my fitness, is still having those measurable events. There's a date and time and a standard of this is exactly what needs completed to drive me and make sure that I get it done. Otherwise, like you said, just saying like, hey, I want to be in the best shape of my life next year. What is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think you're 100% spot on. It has to be measurable. So going into, really, I'd say the 2 or 3 places that everyone that's listening right now finds themselves in. Right now, everyone that's listening to this is an employee in an organization, and they want to get a promotion next year, get a raise next year, get a bonus next year, get equity in their organization next year. They're in the entrepreneur, status. So I think I want to finish touching on that with you. Everyone is in the, I'm trying to kickstart my life, and I don't know if I should get a job, when I graduate college, or, start a side hustle, something like that. Or you've already started an organization, or you were a leader in an organization and you want to set those goals for next year. So I want to finish touching on first the entrepreneur, because I think that is the 100% easiest road to success. That's how both of us got our start, was being an entrepreneur first, which is just working inside an organization and finding ways to add value and continuously improve. So your, really entrepreneur road was fairly short. It was 18 months, and mine wasn't much longer than that. Mine was like 24 months. So talk through, this sort of different, I'd say, chapters of the story and your story as an entrepreneur, and what you did immediately that everyone that's listening to this that's an employee in an organization, like what can they do in 25 to add as much value as possible to make themselves as important in the organization as possible.
Totally. I think the first thing, you have to shed your ego at the door. However old you are, like whatever you've done before, if you're really looking to make a change in your life, you need to shed the ego at the door. And you need to understand, a lot of people online, they talk about, oh, your time is so valuable. Like you need to allocate this to your time, outsource this. When you're starting at ground zero, your time is not valuable.
Right.
That's the only value that you have.
And actually, whatever
time.
Salary you accepted, that's exactly what your time's
That's
worth.
what you're worth. So starting from the beginning, you need to recognize that like you do not have the luxury of outsourcing. You do not have the luxury of delegating. Your time is your only valuable asset. Especially like for me, I was right out of college. I didn't have that much of a real world skill set. So like my time was my only valuable thing. I recognized that very early. So I knew for especially the first year, my biggest value was working as many possible hours that I could to help the organization, help you, help our other partners, other employees, do anything that I could to help. So obviously, like on our side of the business, on the advisor side, I was doing all of that, but then I was looking for areas in marketing, administrative, whatever else it was. I mean,
other
literally
business
cleaning up around the office. Like you have to understand that when you do not have a skill set or you do not have experience, you need to allocate as much time as possible. And yes, I will tell you, like those first 2 years, at least that's what it was for me. It's like 2 years where like you pretty much have to commit to like your life is not going to be that fun. It's not. Like you have to be like, if you really want it, it's like 2 years of like, you are going to sleep less. You are going to work a ridiculous amount. You are not going to go out with friends. You're going to miss parties. You're going to do all of those things. But if you can lock in for those 2 years, like now, especially us, like our goals have completely shifted. Like my workouts used to be like I was working until 11, 12 o'clock at night, and I was still getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and working out. My workouts weren't as great.
No.
My sleep was awful. My health was going downhill. Like now at this point, the things I'm prioritizing are like, at what time of the day can I get my best workout in? Am I getting my 8 hours of quality sleep every single night so that I can come in the next day and make high level decisions? Because you start to shift away from like, you're not, yes, we're still grinding. Yes, we're still working more than 99% of people. But as you become more of like the entrepreneur and you're like CEO or COO or partner, whatever it is, like your job is not to like be in the lab 24/7, like how we used to be on the computer and grinding until all hours of the night. Like your job is to come in and make high quality decisions to help drive your organization and give opportunity to those people within your organization. So like, going back to like originally what I was talking about,
you don't need the 8 hours of sleep at that level.
You don't, because you don't have the knowledge or the experience to make a high quality decision. But what you do have is you have the time to do the grunt work, to do the grind work, to do the things that others are not willing to do. And I can promise you, in any organization, like from working at a bank to you're literally, let's say, working for like a large landscaping company or whatever it is, like if you're putting in more time than those around you, and the person whoever runs that organization notices that, and you're able to add additional value to whatever they're doing, I can promise you 99.9% of the time, they are going to give you more opportunity to earn more compensation and to possibly become like get more responsibility and become a leader in the organization. So I think if you're like, let's say you're employee base level or you're coming out of college, like you got to shed the ego. You're not valuable.
No.
Like there's a million people just like you. And the way to make yourself valuable is like not just working 40 hours a week and doing the bare minimum and punching in and punching out. Like you have to commit to, you are going to miss a lot in the first 2 years. You are not going to have that much fun. You're not going to go on trips. You're not going to, and if that's not the life for you, then that's not for you.
Then be like everybody else.
Then you just like keep doing like what you're doing. And if that's what makes you happy, then that's wonderful, because ultimately, like, above all, like everything that you're supposed to do in life should drive you to making happy and providing for those around you. And like if you can do that by working your 9 to 5 and like you're happy and you can provide for those, then you don't have, like, you can cut out from this podcast because like you don't need to listen to the rest. But if you're somebody else who like truly wants more, then I think just accepting that fact of like, I'm going to do whatever it takes for at least a 2-year period, no matter what the cost is of that. That's the mindset that you have to be going in. And I think like you would agree with that. You were in a lot different situation too, because you had a child when that was going on. Like, fortunately for me, I had nothing tying me down. It was just like, it was myself.
Well,
I wasn't responsible for anybody else.
Well, my entrepreneur time though, I didn't have a kid, which is why, again, like I was only at the off. Like, there was nothing else that I had to do at that point that like was more important than finding a way to, you know, just find ways to improve the organization. So, you know, my entrepreneur time, I would say I had multiple entrepreneur times. So like my first real job out of college, I had the exact same mindset as you of I had nothing but time and no skills. So I did the exact, like, all you need to do is literally just be the first person at the office and just be there until everybody else leaves. You could literally be in your office, like spinning in circles in your chair, and literally the perception, which is extremely important, of everyone in the organization is like, wow, John is a grinder. He lives at the office. And you will build that perception to where people are in a meeting and they're like, hey, who can we count on? It's like, oh, John never leaves. Like, yep, let's give him a shot. Like, it literally, if you're just willing to sacrifice and commit time, you're already 90% of the way there. And then when you're there, you might as well be doing something productive. So find ways to cut cost and pay for yourself. You know, that was what I did because I was in a management role right out of college and just found ways to cut expenses in the organization that literally paid for my salary. Very quickly, I was able to do that. And so the executive leadership was like, that is unique. No one's ever come in and paid for themselves before and saving the organization expenses. So that's what I did in that organization. And then when I got into this one, before I bought the company, I did the exact same thing. Every day was just like, how can we make more money? How can we save more expense? And how can I just add to our output? And that should be everyone's thought. Like, think what matters to a business. Anyone that's running a business, their fiduciary responsibility is to generate profit to the shareholders of the organization and make things better for whoever the customers are in the organization, and find ways to add to efforts to that fight, and you'll advance. So we both had that. You know, for me, it was, you know, 3 years, I would say, of being an entrepreneur before I had like the maneuverability to actually make every decision I wanted to improve the organization as an entrepreneur. And I didn't have kids then, but like, you know, we were in a lot of the grind together for a few years. And that's where, you know, I had a child, which that's when it like really sucks to have to give up that time. So, you know, definitely anyone who does not have a child, like, you literally have no reason to like not just work. And if, again, like, you can have fun goals for the next year also, but like your vision board, if you have one, shouldn't be, I want to like do more travel. Like, if you have nothing, like if you're sitting in a studio apartment and you literally have no money and like you have nothing to show for your professional career, your goals for next year shouldn't be, I want to go to Cancun and then I want to go to like the Bahamas and I want to take a cruise. Like, sure, you can do those things, but I can promise if your only goal is like, how do I max out my PTO? And like, there's people that'll do TikToks on how to like schedule their PTO around holidays to like maximize it. Like, if you're spending time trying to figure that stuff out, again, tune off the, you know, stop watching the podcast. It should be, you know, how to like, you shouldn't care about, you know, PTO or, you know, holidays. Like, it should be, honestly, everyone who's, you know, really made it here, like, has worked all of those holidays and like doesn't really care about PTO, because again, they're bought in and trying to move the organization forward, which unfortunately our business does not stop. You know, on MLK Day or Columbus Day or anything like that. So yeah, like, until a very successful point in your career, your time is your biggest asset. And you just have to just allocate all of it that you can to move the organization forward.
The other thing too, I would want to touch on is that in 2025, if you're starting from ground zero, if you have nothing, commit to this year that this is going to be the year that you're going to take risk. Commit to the year that like you're going to take max risk, like in whatever it is. I don't know what that situation is for you, but like, just my personal experience, when it was about a year in, and I bought like at my first percentage of the company, the monthly payments, and I touched on this before, but my monthly payments for my debt compared to what my income was I was going to be making less than $3,000 net a month.
Yeah.
It was like $2,500 a month net, to where if the business did not grow, like I literally would have ran myself into bankruptcy. I wouldn't have been able to pay my rent, pay my bills, but I bet on myself that we were going to continue to grow. We were going to continue to develop. So I took max risk. I put every single dollar that I had into this business.
You were like 23.
At 23 years old.
Yeah.
Like, because I always
Let's say you go
like,
bankrupt, then you're 30.
if I would have failed, like if you're 23 years old, or even if you're 30 years old and like you don't have a family and you don't have kids yet, like you don't have risk if you don't have anything to pay for. So like in 2025, if you're looking to make that jump, take max risk. I don't care what anyone says, like max risk. Like if you need to put on everything on credit cards and do it into your business, do it. Because if you go bankrupt, you have nothing to lose.
No.
Like there's nothing that you're going backwards for. Like now, if you're in your mid 40s and you have a family and you have a house, that's your priority, is taking care of those people. So yes, you may have to maneuver a little bit different.
You can't afford to go to zero when you have other dependents.
Correct. You can't afford to go to zero. But like if you were in my situation, especially if you're coming right out of college, you need to max risk everything. Like, and you need to be comfortable with that, because if you do not take max risk, like it's like anything else in the world. Like the conservative investment is never going to get you the like 50% return or double like potential return. Like you have to be able to take max risk. So in this year, like take that max risk. Like if it means putting everything on the line, like put it all on the line. Like who cares if it goes to zero? Like, and just accept that. And I think like, I mean, we've done that a million times over to this point, and we're now in a position, like fortunately, that we'll always continue to take risk, but now we're in a position where we can take more calculated risk. Like at the beginning, truthfully, you might have to take reckless risk at the beginning. Like I took reckless risk at the beginning.
I did
like
too.
It was completely reckless. Like I didn't even tell anyone what my situation was, because at least the people that cared about me would have probably been like, don't do that. And I knew that that's what they were going to say. So I didn't tell anyone like what that would have been, because it was taking on $1 million worth of debt when you were making like $50,000 a year. So like at the time it sounded like insane. But yeah, I think again, whatever that is for you, like take extra risk this year. Like go into this year knowing that like, hey, I'm going to put it on the line. And if it doesn't work out, doesn't matter, because you didn't really have much at first anyways. So you only have upside. You really don't have that much downside. But yeah, I think that's like another huge component, because doing everything safe, you're not going to really get ahead leaps and bounds by going the safe way. Like it's always the road less traveled by that's going to get you to the place that a lot of people don't get to go to, which is like that point where if that's your goal of being a successful business owner and an entrepreneur, like that's what you got to do.
Yeah. So we hammered the entrepreneur route. So option 2 is, this is for everybody that's like looking to get their first job. They're wondering, should I go into the workforce? And I would say for people looking to go into the workforce, they have a few different options. There's obviously corporate America. So I'd say organizations that are 500 plus employee and above, or 1,000 plus employee above organizations, which is, you could say, the safest route to go if you're just looking to be an employee, because odds are those companies aren't going to go out of business at that point once you have that many employees. Now they still have in the past, but odds are they're not. So most likely the job's always going to be there, and that's going to be healthcare, 401k, and you could be a sort of normal person and just follow the normal track. So that's option 1. Option 2 would be working at a small business similar to the businesses we have, 50 employees, 100 employees, 200 employees. That's not as safe as the corporate America, because those companies obviously aren't running multi-billion-dollar balance sheets to where, they have the ability to sort of operate forever. The company could fail at some point. A lot higher reward potential, because as we both did, you could build yourself into an entrepreneur there and eventually get equity in that business. Or option 3 would be, and this would be the highest reward potential, most risk, would be trying to figure out how to solve a problem and start your own type of business. So that's option 3, I guess. So for, I'd say we're biased because we obviously wanted max reward potential, but we didn't go and just start something brand new. We took the entrepreneur route, which I think is the, best route to go as far as, from a standpoint of feasibility, I would say most businesses that are starting out completely from scratch, I'd say most probably go out of business. I'm sure there's
You
data
also
out there
learn a
somewhere.
lot being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you do, because you don't know everything, not even
You don't
close.
know anything,
No,
really.
it's sort of like a cheat code to like rapid
is.
fire your growth
Yeah,
too.
it is. And we talk about that all the time. There's no book that teaches you how to be like, there's
No.
entrepreneurial books, but there's no book that teaches you how to like run a business,
Right.
especially in like whatever industry you're going into.
And if you're gonna run the business, you do need to understand your industry first.
Yeah. And I think like, even if your goal is like, let's say you do go corporate America and you get to a point where you can at least figure out like the inner workings of how they run, and you do that for 3-4 years, and maybe you have like a really good VP or good manager or something, and they like mentor you, and then you go out and take that entrepreneur step. I do give credit to all the people who like with zero experience started a business from scratch and grew it into something great with like no guidance. That's very, very difficult.
Those are the
to
unicorns.
do. Yeah, like that's really really hard to do.
There's a graveyard of failed businesses and bankrupt folks that try to do that.
Yeah, that's really difficult to do. So I applaud you if you are one of those people that has built like a 7, 8, 9-figure business from essentially scratch with no guidance, because I would say that's few and far between. But the true cheat code, to your point, is you find a business, whether it be small, whether it be large, you figure out the inner workings of that business, and then, okay, I'm going to take what went well, what didn't go well, and then start my own, and I'm going to apply those things and then move forward.
Right. So if you're either at corporate America or small to mid-sized business, basically just learn what your boss does, and then once you know, like, first I guess you need to master whatever your role is, then learn your boss's role, and then try to learn what everyone else in the organization does. It should just be knowledge. I remember when you came in, you sat with everybody, and we had a really small team, but still you sat with everybody in the building and wanted to learn and master what everybody did. And it wasn't like, oh, like I can't do paperwork. Like there was no, I'm too good for that. Like you did all of your own paperwork when you started, just so you could learn it. So whatever your job is, just try to gain knowledge, sit with every team that'll give you time, and just basically, again, you don't know anything, you're nobody. Just gain as much knowledge as possible. So yeah, I think that's a huge cheat code too. And again, it just adds to the perception of this is a person that wants to be here and wants to grow, because perception is reality in every single organization. But yeah, and I would say really, like, if you're going to go that third row, the third option, which is just start something brand new, fresh. Again, like, there's no risk, because what are you risking if you're in that spot? So if you're just graduating college, or let's say, you're quitting your job to go do this, most likely you really don't have much money at risk here. You're going to be, you have some savings, let's say $5,000 to $10,000, or you're getting a loan from family for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, or if you have some great community bank that's willing to lend you like $25,000, which I'd be shocked if they'd even do that in today's lending environment. Like, you're talking about 10 to 20 grand here. So it's not really risking anything. Or you got a credit card with 10 or 15 grand and you just max that. So, like, again, you're not risking much. But I would say that the best way to do it, which we have started some businesses essentially from zero, is just figure out a way to solve a problem and run with it, and be the best at solving that problem, and just say yes to everything. There's no problem you can't solve. And if we look at everybody that built anything large, it all started with, how do I make this one thing better? Or how do I, improve this thing? Or I found a problem, how do I solve it? And then just like start obviously taking it to people, and you just want to gain as much notoriety around that thing. So just don't try to, I guess, start with just, oh, I want to create a product. You definitely need to solve something first with a service, or you could solve something with a product. So that's what my advice would be to, do if you're going to go that route. But to go into really, I would say the minority of the people that would be watching this would be to the entrepreneurs that are out there that are already running organizations. What advice, Nick, would you give them for 2025?
If you're like the leader of your organization, you have to understand that it is always your job to be bringing more opportunity to the people that work for you. Like, that is your sole purpose, is to continue to drive the ship forward an extra foot, an extra yard, to make sure that more opportunity is coming into the firm for the people that you take care of. Because ultimately, if you employ people, you work for them. You need to understand that. Like, you are responsible for your life. Like, if you're the one signing their paycheck, like, they're the ones who are counting on you for that. Like, that's feeding their family. That's paying their rent. So the way that you continue to improve that for people is you continue to bring opportunity into your firm. And that's the growth aspect of continuing to grow a business. And what I would say is, especially if you're starting out, I'll go back to my original point. You have to commit your life to it. Like, you cannot do it half-assed. It is not
No.
like, I know some people say like the whole side hustle thing. Like, I've never been a believer in the side hustle. Like,
No.
we've anything we've done, we've gone 1,000% into, and we've just gone into it full steam ahead.
Well, and I'll stop you. There were a few things along the way we did half-ass, and what happened?
They go to zero.
Anything we did half-ass, it was a complete, like, you might as well just throw the money in a fire pit and light it on fire.
They suck. Yeah.
Like, if you're allocating an hour or 2 hours a day to something, like, anything we've done that with didn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah. So in 2025, if you're the business owner, understand your job is to bring more opportunity in, and understand that earning money and growing a business is the byproduct of the scale in which you impact people. So like, if you can find a way, like you said, to solve a problem, if you can find a way to create a better service model than the guy down the street, if you can find a way that cares about your clients and your customers more, and you can continue to do that at scale, that's what the largest companies are. They are a byproduct of impacting people in a positive way at the largest scale. So keep that in mind as you go. Like, take care of your clients. Like, give them that call on their birthday. If they're in the hospital, send them the flowers when they're in the hospital. Like, truly care about the people that you serve in your business. And just from that, and we've seen it with ours, the byproduct that you will just continue to drive. If you could take your mind off of the numbers and the money and truly care about, like, how do I impact my customers or my clients in a more positive way, the scale and the opportunity will naturally come to you. That's how the world works. Like, it truly is. Like, it's like the Trump quote, like, the harder that you work, the luckier you become. Like, the more we cared about our people, the harder that we worked, the more time we put into them, the more lucky opportunities have come our way. Because it does take some luck sometimes, but I can guarantee you that if you're working hard and you have the people at your focus, you will become luckier. And like, you will look around and be like, wow, like, this is incredible once you've done it for 2, 3, 4 years, with the amount of opportunity that comes to you purely from being like, you put the numbers on the backside and you're like, I just need to focus on creating the best product or service possible for the people that I serve.
Anytime, like, the few pivotal moments that I can put my finger to that I would say, like, took some luck to get us where we were, was only a byproduct of us just going, like, above and beyond, you know, where most 99% of people would have just, like, took an L and just went about their day. So 100%, like, there's no way that you can do all the right things day in and day out for years and stack those days into months and years without eventually a few opportunities coming your way. Like, there's no way.
No.
And you have to believe that they'll come. And, like, again, like, there's no reason that you and I should be really in the position we're at today. No. Besides, it's a byproduct of the work that we put in and the sacrifices that we've made. Like, there were zero handouts. There were zero, you know, right place, right times. It was literally just like a byproduct of just stacking days into weeks and months and then years of doing what nobody else would do that got us where we're at today.
Yep.
Like, because we went the hardest route, which was having zero money.
Yeah.
Like, you could, like, we always say it'd be real nice to get into our industry just starting with a big pot of money.
Yeah.
That's how you, like, jump through the last 5 years of hell that we've fought through to get to where we're at today.
Yeah.
But really, to close this out, tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary, you know, of our organization, to where, you know, literally 5 years ago tomorrow, you know, you were still in college.
Yep.
Every day was getting 5, 6, 7, 8 debt collectors, you know, calling my phone, and was nobody and had nothing. And to just close this out, I just want to tell everybody listening that in 5 years, there is literally nothing that you can't do. Like, and there's no reason to even wait until Jan 1 to start whatever the hell it is that you're going to do with your time. Literally just start today. Nobody else is working right now. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
So just take some damn action right now and start movement on achieving a better life for yourself and the people that you care about, because it's on you. No one else is going to do it for you. You need to start immediately, and there's no time to wait, because I can tell you that the generation that we are in right now, the people that are achieving a version of success are competitors, because the tools that everyone has available today is way more things to add to their output and volume than were available even 5, 10 years ago. So there's never been a day where there's more content and information available at your disposal to win. So if you're going to compete, you need to outwork everybody. So literally start today while everyone else is taking the knee, and just make next year the biggest year you can for you and your family, because everybody you love deserves it. Literally, they deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve more than what you have in your life today, and never settle for less.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that was a good way to end it.
Awesome. To all the subscribers on YouTube, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're going to close out the year with just under 50,000 subscribers.
Yeah, it's been
We're literally
awesome
got
year.
1,000 new subscribers a day at this point. So thank you for following us along on the ride. Nick and I will not let you down. Continue to like, subscribe, comment, and strap in for the journey that's going to be 2025, because we're going to knock it out of the park.
Yep.
Until next time, stay disciplined.